Welcome to Kritika. Developed by Allm and released in the US and the EU by Unmasked Entertainment. Those beautiful people who brought us one of my favourite MMOs right now, which is Terra. Kritika right now has 4 main classes for you to play with. Each of those classes has subclasses, and it claims that each one of those plays very differently. If that's the case, then you're looking at 11 different ways to play this arcade-style brawler. I say 11 and not 12, because the Reaper class has 2 subclasses instead of 3 for some reason. So, as to why I'm checking this game out, I received an email from Unmasked Entertainment promoting this game to the point where if you hit certain milestones in Kritika, you'll unlock a rather kick-ass looking mount in Terra. 2 versions of it in fact, one for hitting level 20 and one for hitting level 50. So let's move on to creating a character. My first was a warrior, and now we'll be looking at a Reaper. I have to be honest, there is a massive lack of creativity here. There's not many options to pick from at all. Not at all, really. You have a few hairstyles, a handful of faces, and past that, well, that's really it, apart from changing armor colours. There's really nothing else to it. It's very simple and slightly disappointing for an MMO of this period of time. Character customization in MMOs has evolved over time and is quite complex in most MMOs these days. With this one, it seems it has been completely stripped back to the bare basics. Straight away you are thrown to combat, and honestly it's quite responsive on the key presses, and the combat is pretty fast paced, as you would expect from something that basically represents an arcade brawler. It feels like simple key mashing works for most of the combat situations, however. The levels themselves are very small and quite restricting. There's not anywhere to really explore, which makes the progression through any level I have seen so far feel very, very linear. Boss battles appear at the end of every stage, and the first few really are not a challenge at all. Like any other well-known MMO, if you see a red circle, you get away from ASAP. However, the first few levels you can only play on easy anyway, and to test if the damage from the bosses was severe, I stood in some of the rather easy to get away from damaged circles. My character lost, well, 1% health from those supposedly threatening attacks. I guess the first few levels in the game really are for tutorial purposes. Although honestly, after the first 2 fight scenes you pretty much know exactly how to play. So far my first character is level 7, and already the game is feeling like a nasty uphill grind. There are quests scattered about the place, which annoyingly means you will end up playing the same levels over and over again. In one case I went back to the same stage 3 times to clear all the quests I had picked up. Switching gear was rather disappointing too. Changing armor has no visual display. The armor you wear by the looks of it is, well, it. Forever. Unless you buy into a costume. Thankfully weapons appear to have skins, although so far I have not seen too many of those, I'm afraid. Upon reaching level 7, I had one more quest to do, and it was rather a boring quest, which is get to level 8. The only way to do that is to grind out the same 2 available levels you have in that hub area over and over again. It looks like it will take me 4 runs, on average, through the same content to get to level 8, which is quite simply boring and very, very repetitive. The only way this game becomes a bit more fun and challenging is if you run the few levels you have on anything higher than easy mode, ideally hard or insane difficulty. The trash mobs on insane are just that, trash. You can just mash keys and murder them. The only challenge comes in from the bosses of the first 2 levels you can pick from at this early part in the game. The bosses can 3-shot you if you don't heal up on insane difficulty. So, at least for the crazy people out there, there is a challenge in some form. So far, my experience of Kritika is, well, I guess I'd have to say average at best. It's not the worst game I've played. I'm wondering where the MMO aspect of the game is. Maybe later on you need to group up to take on some harder content. I'm not too sure at this point. But so far it's been pretty laid back and not really a challenge whatsoever. Unless you do crank up the difficulty to insane, in which case you do start thinking about dodging and skill usage. Even potting is encouraged on harder difficulty settings. Speaking of the settings, The ones in the game are very, very basic. Video options are very simple. Audio settings are exactly the same. Very, very simple. Not much to them whatsoever. There's one key element I found to be missing here, and that is the support of a gamepad. This type of game kind of fits the gamepad style of gameplay arcade brawlers usually do, and as of yet, I have yet to see any support for it. That being said, if you look at the free MMO RPG genre, Terra comes to mind straight away, and honestly I think it's a lot better than Kritika. With how slow leveling has already become in Kritika at the early stage of level 7, I'm not too sure I have what it takes to grind all the way to level 20, let alone level 50 for my Terra rewards. The game, however, is free to play though. That's the huge plus side to this game. You lose nothing but time. If you enjoy the experience, then what have you really lost? I guess I will try and grind my way to at least level 10 and see if it picks up at all. I'm hoping once I get to 15 and the subclasses open up, something will change and enjoyment level will be at least a little bit higher. Soon find out, I suppose. On that note, I'll see you again soon.